Well, welcome everybody to the Coaches in the Mouth podcast. Got Bray Cook, Coach Bray Cook here from Pea Ridge. Our buddy the Mouth is out. He's on assignment again. He's on assignment watching some team camps. He's been texting back and forth. Let's get into it. We've got a great guest today. Our BSN guest today is Coach Eliah Drinkwitz from Missouri, head coach of the Missouri Tigers. Man, I'm really looking forward to this one because just to talk to him about SEC play and plus me and you researched his career and the things, he took a chance on himself a few times, starting off as a junior high coach and where he's at. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, his coaching history, obviously, at Springdale, kind of the hometown. And then you talk about he was at Alma. He's from Alma, got to coach there, got an opportunity to come back, and which obviously we one of our in-conference rivals at Pea Ridge. And there's a lot of similarities and a lot of people that we know. A lot of my friends have coached for him or GA'd for him. So I'm really excited to talk to him about some of those young coaches he's worked with.
Well, I am too, and just talk to him about his team, and we'll talk to him about portal, and then obviously Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league, and
That's right.
And the new schedule they've got, and we'll talk to him about the rival with Arkansas, and that should be a lot of fun. But we're looking forward to that. So let's go ahead and bring him on. At this time, we'd like to bring in our BSN Sports guest, head coach of the Missouri Tigers, Eliah Drinkwitz. How you doing, Coach? Looks like you're having a good time on the beach out there.
Man, I am soaking up the sun. Well, there's not much sunshine, but I'm soaking in some beach relaxation, having some vacation here, that quiet time in July before, as we all know, we get into fall camp, into that season mode. So chilling. I didn't know you had a pool table, Jeff.
We got a pool table, full studio here, baby.
Coach. Yeah,
full studio here in Little Arkansas, baby. You can't beat it. Can't beat it.
That's awesome.
Can't beat it. Well, let's get into talk to you. And I was doing some research. Of course, I've known you forever. Man, with your career, I don't think going back and looking, and I've followed coaches my whole life, how you bet on yourself a couple of times, and it's worked out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you really have. Let's start this. You're born in Norman, Oklahoma, moved to Alma, Arkansas, Alma, America, when you were 1 year old. Tell me about it's funny, the guys you grew up with, how many are coaches? I mean, the Fimple brothers, Jeremy Burns, all those guys, a lot more. Tell me about your time growing up in Alma and how big Alma football was and playing for Coach Vines.
Yeah, I mean, I think really that's the foundation for me. Was we were a bedroom community that everybody played football. I mean, Friday night lights were where everybody wanted to be, and I remember going to every Friday night home game. I remember playing Little League football and just dreaming about being an Airedale. Coach Vines was one of those legendary figures that, if you saw him in the town, you were afraid to go say hi to him. He was just bigger than life itself, and there's a lot of just great people that have come out of that town. Obviously you talk about the Fimple brothers, Daryl and Keith and Jeremy Burns and Jared Burns and the Daly brothers. I mean, there's been a lot of really good football players who were a lot of character and toughness and all the things that make you the character that you have really developed on those football fields. We were old school two-a-days, starting in seventh grade all the way up to high school. And it was just something about playing for that town and the community. You didn't want to disappoint them, and so I remember the summer workouts. Had to make summer workouts. I remember, a lot of really good, fun stories to think back on. I do remember a couple of times when I was young, about 10 or 12, the high schoolers would play rag ball at the local baseball park. And those guys were Keith and Daryl, all right, the Burns brothers, and they'd let these Drinkwitz boys come play. And I was the youngest. And they always let me hang around. I don't know if they was because I was like the punching bag or whatever, but I always got to go hang around them. Daryl and Keith's dad cut hair. We didn't come from much growing up, and I know several times that Terry cut my hair for free just because hell I looked so bad. We needed a haircut, but I really appreciated that community and what they did for me and my family growing up.
Well, and you got such a big family. I mean, how many brothers and sisters you got?
Yeah, I got 3 sisters, 2 brothers, and all graduated from Alma High School. Most of us, the smart ones, all went to Arkansas Tech. We had one. Well, we had 2 go to UCA. It ain't worked out for one of them too good, and I blame the UCA education more than anything else. But that's a different story.
Oh, mate. Well, you have your playing career there. You won state championships. I believe your senior year. Is it your senior year to play Harrison in the final?
Yeah. Well, actually, Jeff, it's actually my junior year. I played Harrison in the finals. We're up 7-0 in the third quarter. They throw a touchdown pass to Tommy Edwards. Tommy Edwards was, to me, he was as good a player as I'd ever seen. He ends up kicking the game-winning field goal against us with no time on the clock. Ends up going to Arkansas Tech. I don't know what all happened to his career, but, man, I thought he was a great player. My senior year, though, we get beat at Wynn. D'Angelo Williams ran me over at the goal line. I remember coming off the sideline and Coach Heslin and Coach Witherspoon, my defensive coordinator there, and they looked at me and said, "Well, we would tell you you're going to have to get bigger and stronger this summer, but you ain't going to play football."
Yeah, and I'm sure, D'Angelo probably played 15 years in the NFL, and I'm sure Coach Witherspoon was upset you didn't form tackle him for a lost yard.
Yeah, well, I tried. The problem was I tried to form tackle him, and that was a dumb decision. I should have gone low. Yeah, man, I remember that game, and holy cow! I tell you what, though, Bray, here's one of these things that I know Jeff's going to try to go by. Okay, as a young coach, Jeff Williams gets the head coaching job at Southside High School. Okay, he's got 4 openings, and a young guy who just graduated Arkansas Tech University called him trying to get a job, and he wouldn't hire me.
Oh no!
So I had to take a job. I had to take a job at Alma. And end up going to Springdale. But, one of those things I look back on in life just said, what if? What if Jeff Williams?
And the other funny part, you don't know this, was Mike Norvell was a GA at UCA, and I tried to talk to him about coming also, and I tell people this all the time. I said, man, I can spot talent a mile away. I just don't know where to put them.
Yeah. Now, hey, Jeff, I was trying to think about this, okay? In about 8 or 9, you played for the state championship. Was it against Bentonville or was it against Harbor?
I believe it was Harbor.
In 08, we won it in 06, and then 07, the famous Springdale High School comes out in a split defense. They never ran it for in their life. We'll get in that later on. Yeah, never ran that for. Never ran it for in their lives, and hadn't ran it since. And so anyway, 08 we played Bentonville in the finals, and then 09 the famous whopping 5th seed rolled in to War Memorial, and the great story about that. Me and Brave talked about this 100 times off there. Keith Fimple, the defense coordinator, goes, "Hey, we're going to let the quarterback beat us." Well, about the first quarter, the quarterback's thrown for about 130 yards and rushed for 60. I go, "Hey, man, that guy's beating us." He goes, "Yeah, I'm watching the same game."
That was when that old thing came out. It was like Bill Belichick said, "Hey, if Thurman Thomas rushes for 100 yards."
Yeah.
That's a Bill Belichick.
That sounds good on Sunday.
That ain't for us.
Yeah, that sounds good on Sunday. Well, you go to Arkansas Tech, you graduate, and we just talked about, you go work at Alma for a year or so, and then you're eager to move up. You're kind of stuck there, and back then people don't realize, people in Alma, they just didn't leave. Well, they were there forever.
No, they didn't leave.
They didn't leave, and so you take off and you student taught at Springdale, I believe, and then you went back up to Springdale and worked for Coach Johnson as offensive line coach at first.
Yeah, so I went to student taught at Springdale with Coach Malzahn, and that's where I had a relationship with him, and actually stayed and taught an alternative education that spring semester. Got offered a job at Alma, went back for a year, and then Springdale Harbor split off. Springdale High School, Springdale Harbor split off, and Coach Johnson took the Springdale High School job, and I got a chance to come back and really was an awesome opportunity. It was a tough decision. You know, like you said, people in Alma don't leave. That community means so much to the, to everybody there. And coaches were on a different, level. I mean, you got treated really well to be a coach at Alma. And so, but I just felt like for me, it was time. And I guess that's kind of I don't know if it's a theme in my life, but just a decision. Like I just kind of knew I needed to take a jump and a leap of faith. I could either stick at this and stay in. I wouldn't say it was a rut, but maybe the path that was easier, go kind of blaze my own path, and decided to do that, and did that for 4 years. Really interesting thing happened. So Coach Johnson was diagnosed with cancer. The job comes open, and I applied for the head coaching job. I'm going to be one of the youngest head coaches. Thought I was ready for it. Didn't get it. Didn't get it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my career's over. I'm never going to get it. All those things when you face rejection. And about 3 weeks later, Gus Malthorn calls and says, "Hey, I've got this quality control position. It's $15,000 a year, no benefits, and we'll see if we can get your wife a job teaching." At that time, I had a 2-month-old daughter.
I remember.
And I'm thinking, and I mean, we're at Springdale. We're making great money. My wife was a teacher in the district. I was a teacher in the district. And honestly, I tell my wife this all the time. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have done it. She's the one that said, "Hey, we need to do this. You'll always regret if we don't take this chance." And we did it. And I mean, it was. Oh man, those are some.
Those were some great phone calls.
Some great phone calls, but I'll tell you this. You learn real quickly. Coach Malzahn told me my job was to make sure that I was there before he was, and to make sure the coffee was ready. And so I'm the best coffee maker probably to this day. I mean, I can make a pot of coffee like that. And then I was responsible for getting him his breakfast and lunch, and I'll never forget in about 2011 he said, "Eli, you're a getter doner. No matter what I tell you to do, you find a way to get it done." And I think that's what led to him ultimately hiring me in 2012 as the running back coach, special teams coordinator at Arkansas State. Now, the funniest thing about that is I had zero special teams knowledge or responsibility in my 2 years at Auburn. I didn't sit in a single meeting. I was the O-line today. And I mean, oh my gosh, we were playing Memphis. We got a punt block for a touchdown. We muffed a punt for a touchdown. Okay, we have up 14 points of special teams. We ended up winning the game. I get called in the next day by Gus, and he's like, "Coach, if you don't get this fixed, I'm going to have to let you go." And I'm like, "Coach, I have no idea how to fix it. I mean, I don't even know what we're doing." It was like a Seinfeld episode with Costanza. I was like, "What?" Oh, man. Yeah.
Well, I remember, I think y'all went to play to Oregon or somebody, and you called me. You're so proud because y'all led the nation in kickoff returns that day. I mean, that week.
In touchback. Yeah, so we go up to Oregon. I've never flown across the Rockies before. We go to Oregon, play 8:00 game. I look up, and it's the end of the first quarter. It is 35-0. And Coach Malzahn walked by me and said, "You better not give up a score on special teams." And I'm thinking, special teams the least of our problems. We were down 50-0 at halftime. We ended up coming back. We scored, I don't know, maybe 28. We land the next morning, and we get in there, and Coach goes, "Boys, all of us owe Chip Kelly. If we could ever do anything for Chip Kelly, that guy could have scored 100 points on us." So to this day, we're all thankful to Chip.
Thankful to Chip Kelly.
Our careers.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Gus is there a year, and everybody kind of probably knew he wasn't going to be there real long. And you make I thought was a pivotal move. I mean, in your career, he goes to Auburn, and you stay at Arkansas State. And I know you liked Arkansas State a lot, but I mean, SEC to Sun Belt, and I remember you staying. I mean, you talked about it, and you just. One thing about you is you get your mind made up. Nobody's going to deny you, and you ain't changing.
Probably true.
You know what I mean? So talk about
I
that
tell you what,
transition, though. Him leaving, you've been
yeah,
with him. He's got you into it, and now you're working with a guy
yeah.
you really don't know.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, that was kind of an interesting 4 weeks of my life. We're on the road. We're on the road. We win the Sun Belt Championship. We all go on the road recruiting, and it's starting to become real that Gus is going to get that Auburn job. He gets it, calls us in off the road. None of us have signed contracts, okay? And Gus says he's going to take care of it, and I knew he would have something for us. Um, but we all go in, and the AD at the time, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for, Terry Mahajra, gives me the greatest line. Because none of us have contracts. So as soon as bowl game's done, we're all done. And he says, guys, just like the Godfather, this is the life you've chosen. And that has stuck with me for the rest of my career. Like, man, don't complain about it. This is the life you've chosen. And so they hired Brian Harsin, and I had no idea, never met Brian before, never talked to him. But what most people don't know at that time was Alma was going through a coaching change.
Sure were.
I had actually received a phone call and you can't technically be offered jobs, must the board and all that stuff, but given the opportunity to go back home for a lot of for really more than I was making I was making $50,000 a year as running back coach, special teams coordinator at Arkansas State. They were talking about 6-figure job. Or I could go to Auburn as like a senior assistant to the head coach off the field, or I could stay making $50,000 a year as the co-offensive coordinator running back coach with a guy I'd never met before. And man, something just told me if I was going to really make it, I needed to go out and make it. And at some point, I was going to have to leave Gus. And it's hard to get jobs, man, especially in college football. It's really hard to get to break in. And so I just felt like, and I had to tell Alma no prior to even having the job at Arkansas State. So I had to tell them no before the end of December. Brian Harsin didn't offer me a job until about the 1st of January. But kind of in the back of my mind, I was thinking, hey, if I take this chance and it doesn't work out, Gus will always be able to help me at Auburn. But I may never get this chance again. So I did it. A year later, Brian Harsin gets the Boise State job. I'm kind of in the same situation. He takes me with him, end up becoming the offensive coordinator there, have a chance to go to NC State, offensive coordinator for 3 seasons, have just a tremendous time. Dave Warren was an excellent head coach to work for. Now that I'm not calling plays and just trying to be a head coach, I think about all the things that he used to teach me. But I kind of came to this same pivotal deal. I'd been at NC State for 3 years. There had been a couple of offensive coordinator jobs in the SEC that I didn't get. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, man, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe my time's passed. And out of the blue, App State calls. Their coaching search had kind of gone. Everybody thought they kind of knew who they were going to hire, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. And I go interview on a Sunday, and they call me on Wednesday and offer me the job. And man, it was a fast turnaround. But man, we had a great football team. We had a really good football team. Satterfield left that cover. Those guys knew how to win. I was able to retain some coaches, bring some coaches, and that was an incredibly fun year to coach. We had such a great leadership, and we had a great quarterback, Zach Thomas, Darrington Evans, Akeem Davis Gaithers, who plays for the Bengals. We had a really good football team, and had an opportunity to go to North Carolina week 3 and beat North Carolina at North Carolina, which was as big a win in App State history. I know they beat Michigan, and that was big. But man, right there, number 2 probably is that win right there. And then midway through the season, we got beat on a Thursday night in a freaking blizzard by Georgia Southern, and everybody was down because not only did we lose, we had been undefeated, but we lost. Now we were we were 2 games behind them in the division. So man, things were bleak. And I'll tell you what, there's one place you lose a game, those people will get after your butt as Appalachian State, man. They don't put up with losing at all.
They love football there.
Oh, they love football, and they don't like to lose. And when you lose, they let you know about it. I mean, they were burning Twitter down. They were done with me already. And we're going to go to South Carolina. Well, Will Muschamp was the head coach of South Carolina, and Will had a chance to hire me as an offensive coordinator, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And I always remembered that. And before the game, I was shaking his hand, and I said, "Man, Will, I'll never forget. I had an opportunity to come work for you, and it didn't work out." And he started laughing, and I was serious, you know. And man, we end up playing the game of our life. I mean, the game of our life. And end up beating them. They had a chance. They converted like 2 4th-and-19 on the last drive and overthrow it, and we beat them in the fourth quarter and end up going on to win the Sun Belt Championship and having a heck of a season. And man, it was a lot of fun to be a head coach that year. And I thought, boy, I have this thing figured out. And then I tackled the SEC. And then I figured out I don't have this thing figured out. That thing gets, they say new levels, new devils. It's the same thing as a head coach. And holy cow. So now here at Missouri and going on my 4th season, been some really high highs and there's been some low lows, man. But still working. I feel like we got a really good football team. I feel like I got the right people in place at the coordinator positions, man. Really proud of Blake Baker, our defensive coordinator, who was actually with me on that first staff at Arkansas State. Kirby Moore, at offensive coordinator. So really excited about this season and what opportunities lie ahead of us.
Well, you look at your team last year, I was just researching. I remember I watched all your games, obviously, and a lot of games. And y'all started off slow a little bit and just lost a lot of close games. I mean, you go look at the all year long. I mean, besides the Tennessee game, which that was crazy. I mean, everything else was, you got Georgia, you got the national champion on the ropes in the fourth quarter. You got those guys. But then you come back and you finish strong at the end of the year. Tell me what's your roster look like right now, because everybody's turns over. And where do you think you are? Because the SEC's about to change with Texas and Oklahoma. We'll get into that later. But where are you at right now with your bunch and in your group?
Yeah, last year was it was a strange year. I knew going into the season our schedule was really difficult early. And, obviously we had to go to K-State, ended up being a Big 12 champs. We had Georgia at home. We were on the road at Auburn, at Florida. I mean, first 4 of our first 6 we were going to be underdogs. And so had a tough row ahead of us. And I mean, just missed some breaks. We play Auburn and self-inflicted issues get us beat, miss a field goal, never extend the ball on the goal line except for 4th down or the last play of the game. Well, we did it on the second play of overtime. Jumped off sides on a missed field goal. I mean, just so many self-inflicted wounds. And that was one of the toughest locker rooms I've ever been involved in. And we had players, really beat up and hurt and angered, and coaches. And for us to bounce back the way we did against Georgia, but come up short, and then the very next week we go on the road to Florida and battle our butt off and come up short. And that's the hardest parts when you see guys putting in the effort, but they don't get the result. And that's where you just got to stick to it, stay the course. And we were 2-4 at the bye week, and I'm very appreciative of our board and our athletics director and president saying, "Hey, we believe in what Eli's doing." Gave me an extension, probably when I didn't deserve it. And we end up beating Vanderbilt, going on the road, beating the top 20 team at South Carolina. Take a really tough break against Kentucky. I still can't believe that rule. The official said, so a punter is still a punter if he runs 50 yards that direction, the opposite direction. He's still in punting form. But anyway, lose a tough one there and win the last 2 games. Have to hold off a very difficult Arkansas team. KJ Jefferson, I think, probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best in the SEC. To get bowl eligible. So very proud of the resolve that our team had. I just think it added another layer of toughness to what we're trying to build. Our team, I think the best recruiting we did was we were able to retain 8 players who had NFL draft grades. Javon Foster, Harrison Mevis, our left tackle is Javon Foster, all SEC player, Harrison Mevis, all SEC kicker. On the defensive side of the ball, Tyron Hopper, all SEC linebacker, Chris Abrams-Drain, Ennis Rakestraw, both all SEC caliber corners. J.C. Carlisle is a SEC caliber safety. We got a transfer in, Trevez Johnson, who was a starter at Florida this past year. Our middle linebacker, Chad Bailey's back. Darius Robinson, an all-SEC caliber defensive tackle, is going to slide out the defensive end. You know, Jeff, you used to always say you got to be strong up the middle, right?
Got to be strong up the
Well,
middle.
all six of our defensive tackles return.
Goodness.
Our three of our four linebackers return, and one of them's coming back from injury, so that'd be four. And our two starting safeties return. Okay, so we're strong in the middle on defense. You know, we've got some really good younger players who are really developing. I really like the depth of our team. On the offensive side of the ball, we added a transfer at right tackle. Our right guard, Armand Nimbu, is an incredibly gifted player. Started it for us as a true freshman the last 3 games of the season at tackle. We're going to move him into guard. So really like where the offensive line situated. Our wide receiver core is deep. Here's the stat for you. 31 of our players on our roster have started 5 or more college football games.
Wow.
31 players on our roster have started 5 or more college football games. I don't know if I've ever been a part of anything like that. I know I haven't. But that's just college football now with name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal. You're able to kind of go out and fill holes and continue to build some depth. Obviously, we got to get some quarterback play. Got really some capable guys that are going to really battle in fall camp to see who gives us the best chance to be explosive and score points.
Well, you just hit this portal, NIL. I mean, kind of a 2-part. We'll start. When this first came out, and we had Houston Nutt on earlier, just talking about what he would do, and you know if he was still coaching and different guys, and I've talked to different guys. When portal NIL came out, what was your plan, and what did you do as far as staff wise, as far as organization wise, getting ready for that, and what's your approach with the portal first? And then second part with NIL.
Whew. Those are two good questions. I think the portal thing first was we had to kind of develop a strategy, and then it's kind of evolved a little bit over time. It's evolved a lot for me. The first thing I wanted to do was utilize the transfer portal to fix roster issues. And figure out, okay, where are the areas that we're weak? Can we get somebody out of the portal who's going to be more ready to play to fill this hole, maybe instead of junior college or supplement the junior college field? You know, now as we've gotten into it with roster management, because of the ability to transfer every year, it's kind of become, there's 4 ways that you can build a roster now. The first one is retention. So the very first thing, you got to retain the players on your team, and every year this starts over. So in December, you retain the players on your team. Then you get your signees, all right? And then after that, you compose the rest of your roster through NIL and junior college, or not through NIL, through transfer portal and junior college. And so for me, it's not necessarily one of these things where I'm going to go fill my holes in my roster. It's literally, it's how you build your roster now. And every year is going to be different. You're going to have players who stay. You're going to have players that leave every year for a lot of different factors, and that's the right that they have now in this environment, which is good for them. So that's kind of how we do it. You know, it used to be as 85-man scholarship limit and roster, and you were constantly worried about 4 years down the road, and I'm going to recruit a freshman class in 4 years to become seniors, and you know, I don't even look at it that way anymore. I look at how can I build a roster for this year, and how do I have enough guys in maybe the developmental aspect of my program that's going to develop into the future players that we have. But man, the years of having long lines at the quarterback position or the running back, those years, those are long gone. Guys are not going to stay. They're going to want to go play. They want to go make their money, and absolutely, that's what they've earned. So as coaches, we got to adapt and adjust. As far as NIL, and this is Diet Coke. I don't need any crazy rumors out there, okay? This is clearly Diet Coke. You know, as far as NIL goes, the very first thing I did was say, we better make sure our state law is as good as anywhere in the country, all right, as far as regarding NIL and how we can use it to our advantage. And that was really one of the main priorities I've always had is how do we make sure that we have the most flexible state law that we can have to benefit our student athletes for NIL. And then the second thing, I am for these guys making as much money as they possibly can make with the responsibilities that they need to have in educating them on how to use it. And so, how do we let them make as much money as possible, but how do we make sure that they're not necessarily responsible? Let's just say educated.
Yeah.
Money is in the good book says it's the root of all evil. I don't want it to be evil for them. I want it to be a positive. And so how do we teach them about how to use it properly?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, Coach Nutt talked about this and Bray, because Bray was talking about, if he was still, because we had Casey over here, if they were still playing, and Bray's talking about he'd had
every single restaurant in Northwest Arkansas, because we would kill it. I mean, we'd be eating good.
Yeah. Well, it did that. And one thing Houston brought up was, how do you manage the locker room? Mm-hmm. It's not a pro team, but Bray's getting this much, and they all know what they're all getting. How do you manage that?
Yeah, two things. We got Bray, you'd love. We got a guy on our team named 69 Eats Local. Drake Heismeyer. Birthday was yesterday. He has more food deals than anybody in the country. He's always endorsing pizza places, restaurants. His whole deal is 69 Eats Local. It's really good. And he's doing well. His team's doing well. Crud, 7 of our guys on the offensive line had NIL deals with Hooters last year. And never took me. I appreciate them not doing that. It would have put me in a bind with my wife. But I mean, it's been unique on what some of these opportunities these guys have. As far as locker room goes, hot take here. I don't worry about it. I can't worry about it. I talk to our guys openly about NIL, and I talk to them about comparisons to FIFA Joy. I talk to them about, you don't count other people's money. But everybody's got human emotions, and there's no way you can manage. I mean, that's the reality of it is there's no management of that. I think college football for a long time was coaches exerting a lot of control. The reality of it is we don't have as much control as we used to have. And so there's just things that we're not going to be able to manage. You're going to have to understand that's going to be part of it. There's going to be issues like that. The one thing that we're trying to do to just help our team is just build that bond and just build that team chemistry, that it's bigger than it's bigger than NIL deal. It's just us, man. It's just us, baby. And let's just go win. Nobody else cares. Nobody else cares about what this guy makes or what you make. Like, you're still doing better than a lot of other people, and there'd be a lot of people trade places with you. And so maybe look at it as more of a blessing than a comparison. But it still happens. We're all human. I mean, I compare my contract to other people, and I can choose whether or not be upset about that or not. And, I realize I'm a lot more blessed than I should be anyway. So I try not to let it affect me.
Well, good deal. Gray, go ahead, and then we're going to go back and forth here a little bit.
Yeah, Coach. Thanks for coming on. I was with Joseph Calcagni this morning, Purple Dog now. We were kind of telling some stories about you, but looking at your career, and obviously Coach Williams and I have gone back and forth and kind of researched you these last couple of days, but you started as that high school coach, made that jump to go be that GA or that off the field young coach position at Auburn. And I look at my career, and it was the opposite. I started as that GA and then jumped into the high school ranks, and now after Coach Williams went to Siloam, and now a head coach. Looking back, I wish I would have had that get her done that you talked about earlier, as a GA. And some of those things you don't quite understand or realize as a young coach. What's something that you look for when you do hire a GA? Because I think that job is obviously so important, and that role is sometimes misunderstood.
Yeah, Bray, I think that's a great question, man. Joseph Calcagni was a getter-doner. Obviously, just had a baby. Very proud of him. He knows what it's like. I mean, now he's a purple dog. Used to be a bulldog. Now he knows what it's like for me. Being in Missouri, used to be an Arkansas guy. So he feels my pain. I think for me, I look for grit. really grit in the get her done mentality. I mean, you can't have no job can be too small for you. And I think, all three of us have been head coaches. Somebody that you don't have to worry about, that you can assign them a task and know it's going to get done. They're not going to go BCD about it. I mean, that person's invaluable to you. And that's what it is with the GA. I think you learn so much about, never giving in, never quitting, refusal to give up. We call it the stubborn refusal to quit, is what kind of our definition of grit. It's passion plus perseverance over time, man. It's how passionate are you about what you want to do, plus you're a perseverance mover. And I think so many times with GAs, they get frustrated because the doors don't always open the first time they knock. And then they go choose something to do something else. So they get frustrated because the job, especially as a former player, I mean, you go from being the highest where everybody's trying to serve you to being the lowest where, man, nobody cares about nothing. They need you to run to stinking Little Rock and pick up a wallet and drive it back for somebody. Like, your time's just not as valuable. And the reality of it is, it just teaches you a lesson. So I would just tell you that I look for getter doners and really grit. And I think somebody that we both know, Al Davis, our defensive line coach, he's a guy that demonstrates, grit and passion plus perseverance. Man, was a junior college coach, has worked his way up, and just refused to give in to the naysayers. And yeah, so I think that's what I look for.
Yeah.
And I'd say this too, Bray.
Go ahead.
I think so many times people want to skip steps. Whether it's a good player or a coach, man, they want to skip steps. I wanted to, man. I wanted to not have to be the junior high coach or the offensive coordinator. I wanted to jump straight into the calling plays, man. Sometimes you just got to learn those lessons. And I'll tell you this: being an offensive coordinator and calling plays in high school, what benefited me more than anything was calling plays on Monday nights as a sophomore coach, as the JV coach, as the seventh grade coach. Man, the number of 7-on-7s that I've called, the number of third down play calls that I've had to call in my life, make these ones on Saturday. So I would say easy, but easier, right? Because you develop an identity, you develop who you are. I think it's really tough for college coaches to go from never calling plays to calling plays, because there's something to it about just repetition. And, that's one of those things I look back and say, golly, if I didn't have that experience, I don't know that I'd have made it as a play caller.
Sure. And you talk about Coach Davis, he was in town with Tritola. And one thing that we talked about was the JUCO life. I mean, you mentioned, his experience there and how vastly different and how impactful, and you mentioned learning some lessons, maybe getting humbled a little bit, and how big of an impact that can have on a young coach.
Yep, no doubt. Let's just change roles here a little bit. Let's talk SEC a little bit. My question, we'll go back to Bray, is OU and Texas. I looked at your schedule for next year, and the Sooners you got the Sooners on it. Way college football's shaping. Tell me what you think. It's going to be just major conferences and everybody else is going away, kind of one of those deals. That's my opinion. With OU and Texas coming in, I mean, it's already brutal. And, it's already, I look at everybody's schedule, even Alabama or Georgia, it's still brutal, even with where they're at. What's your take on them coming in? And also with everybody's going to play 8 games next year. You want 9 or vice versa. But with OU and Texas, what do you see the landscape of the SEC being in the next 5 years and the landscape of college football, which is, if you
I tell you what I love about you, Jeff, is you're such a positive guy, because that means you're giving me another year. You think I saw that today where I'm on the stinking hot seat. So for you to assume that next year I'm gonna still be here is like great positivity. So let's all put that in perspective.
Yeah.
In this day and age, you just think you never know, but. No, I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, the SEC has always been the premier the conference in college football. And so you're constantly always having to figure out how to rebrand yourself. And I'll give Commissioner Sankey credit for pulling off the trade of the century. I mean, we're going to add 2 iconic brands and bring them into the league. Now, it's going to be interesting for them, all right, because it's easy to poke holes in the SEC until you're actually in the league. And trench life gets real, doesn't it, Bray, in our league?
Yes,
I mean,
sir,
trench life gets real, and you got to recruit a different level, and you got to have a different style of play. And I mean, there's no gimmies, and there's no gimmies on anybody's schedule. Don't get me wrong, but man, the level of competition that we're going to have is going to be insane. Now, I'm a traditionalist, okay. I think they did a tremendous job with this 8-game schedule. I was shocked at how it worked out because I thought for sure we were going to get the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs put on our schedule.
Well, and to be honest with you, and Arkansas have gotten that.
Okay.
I mean, it's been unbelievable. I mean, the schedule. Don't think they didn't just pull them out.
Yeah. Now, nobody in Arkansas want to know this. Sam and I had a text message when they said we're going to get an 8-game schedule, and both of us said, "Hey, man, get ready for this one." Okay, but both of us, it worked out fine. All right, it worked out fine. But I think we should have gone to a 9-game schedule. I think eventually we will get to a 9-game schedule. I think we should have permanent teams so that we can measure ourselves on a yearly basis. I think if you're constantly rotating opponents, I don't think it's good for the game. I don't think it's good for developing rivalries. I don't think it's good for developing traditional expectations. So I think you should have 3 permanent opponents. I think what makes the SEC great is the long hatred of the fan bases for each other. And I think anytime you don't play, I mean, look, I know this audience can be predominantly Arkansas, and I mean, Arkansas should play Texas. I mean, that is a game they should play. Arkansas should play Missouri, absolutely, you know, and I know that Arkansas LSU matchup means a lot to a lot of those fans. You know, so I hate to lose those games. You know, same thing when you talk about Auburn. I hate for them to lose the oldest rivalry with Georgia or Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, we all have been SEC fans for a long time. We can name those games. So I hate if we lose those. What does it become? You know, and so that's why I've been such a proponent of that 9-game schedule. But I do understand this, man. With us going to a 12-team model, playoff model, the more teams that have fewer losses in the SEC, the more teams that are going to get in. And it all comes back down to money. All right. And so the more SEC teams that can get in the playoff, the better it is for our league. So I think that may have played into that 8-game schedule.
Wow.
And now you mentioned a couple of Arkansas's, rivals in the past growing up. For me, it was always Texas. Then, it became LSU. Now it's Mizzou. My senior year, we beat Texas. We beat LSU. We did not beat Missouri. What Missouri got us 21, I believe 14. What does that Battle Line Trophy mean to your program?
Well, I think I've done my best to try to continue the flames of this rivalry. But I understand it's good for college football, but it's good for Missouri, right? The more natural rivalry you have, the more engaged your fan base can be, the more passion that's involved in your fan base, the more willing they are to get involved, right? The worst thing that can happen in life is to be okay with being mediocre or not having enough energy towards something. And so I think for us, obviously being new to this league, obviously sharing a border, the way they set it up, it's the first Friday after Thanksgiving. I think it matches up really well for us. We should be rivals. And, obviously being from Arkansas, I've got, used to have Barrett Bannister on my squad, which it meant a whole heck of a lot to him. Now it's Drayden Norwood. Me and Drayden are the two only Arkansas boys. We might have one coming here, though. Maybe have one that'll be joining with us. But excited about it means a lot. And I'll say this, too. Anytime you play for a trophy in college football, it better mean something to your team. And it sure heck means a lot to our team to win a trophy. A tangible benefit after a game, it means something to us. And I know this, it means something to my dad, because he in his neighborhood, he hangs out this Missouri flag, and stinking neighbors come and they take it off his porch. And every time we win, he goes there and buys another one, hangs that thing. Well, I buy another one, so he takes it with him. He hangs that sucker outside Alma. He don't give a damn. So I love it for him.
Well, let me ask you this: being an Arkansas guy, And this literally happened about 3 weeks ago. I don't even think I've told you this. So I'm driving down the road, and I'm not paying attention. Sports radio's on, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not my halfway listening on the phone here or there. And this sports radio guy, I don't remember who it was, goes, you know, I can't stand that guy. He's one notch lower than Eliah Drinkwitz. I mean, being from Arkansas, how does that make you feel? I mean, I'm sitting there going, I've known this guy. He's a good guy. He ain't a bad guy, you know. But you've really stirred the rival up.
I know. How about this? Somebody unblocked me on Twitter today just so that they could tell me that they unblocked me. I don't block anybody. They unblocked me because my tweets enraged them so much to let me know that I was one of the top 5 worst Arkansas Kansas of all time. Hello, Tommy Tuberville and Mike Huckabee. And I'm like, damn. I mean, there's been some bad dudes in this state. And but you know, it's part of it. I actually love college football. I love everything about it. But I love my fans at Mizzou. And I remember every day. My job is to represent my fan base and to do what I can for our team. And if that means, you know, making a few jabs. You got to remember, my favorite coach of all time is Steve Spurrier. I had a chance to play golf with Coach Spurrier this past April. And for 18 holes, I thought I was in heaven. I sent my wife a text. I sent my dad a text and just was like, I cannot believe that I'm getting a chance to golf with Steve Spurrier. And he called me and left me a message. And it said, and I can't do the voice. Eli, had a really enjoyable time playing golf with you. Hit a few good shots. Hit a few uglies. I thought, oh my God. It was unbelievable. So anyway, I go back to this. I'm living a dream, Jeff, Bray. I'm absolutely living a dream. And I'm not going to let the fear of being I'm going to be exactly who I am. And is that going to make everybody happy? Absolutely not. But, man, I'm going to enjoy it while I am, because who knows? In 3 or 4 years, this ride may be over. I may be doing a podcast. But they're not going to say I wasn't who I've always been. And so that's kind of that's part of it.
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll get you off here so you can get back to the beach and everything.
Yeah.
What is the loudest stadium you've coached in? And there's some big, national championship games, you know, Auburn, Alabama games. Y'all have had some big ones up there. What?
Yeah.
Where you thought, my God.
Yeah, I'll say this, man. I've been very blessed. I've been to every stadium in the SEC but Texas A&M, and they're all unique. And I saw a tweet the other day that said the top 5 could rotate every other game. I mean, it really could. I'll say this: the environment we had against Georgia was as good as I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I remember being a fan in Donald W. Reynolds Stadium when Arkansas was playing number 1 Alabama, and that was, it was rocking. I remember going to LSU when we were a ranked opponent, and our kickoff return guy refusing to go back out on the field because he was not going back out there. We were getting drilled, and those fans were going crazy. But the loudest I've ever been in was the Iron Bowl at Alabama in 2010. They threw the money, the fake money at Cam when we walked out. And I'll say this: it's the loudest stadium I've ever been, and it's the quietest stadium I've ever been in the same game. And
because they jumped up 21-0 on y'all,
they
and then
jumped
y'all
up
came back.
21-0. Yeah. But I will say this, okay, and this is going to piss some people off, but probably the coolest moment I've ever had in the SEC Stadium was when we were at Appalachian State. We beat South Carolina, and after the game, they're chanting "Go Nears," and man, that was an unbelievable feeling. So I've been to South Carolina 2011 Auburn. They play Enter Sandman, and they're shaking those towels. It looks like it's snowing in the middle of September. It's crazy, but a lot of really cool environments, man, for sure.
Well, Eli, I tell you what. Look forward to watching your team. We're close friends, and I keep up with you, and I'll text you the things I think you need to work on. I know you listen to me a lot.
Well, I need you to come up and pick the quarterback. Okay, you've
Pick
done a heck of a
quarterback. That's what
job
I
doing
want.
that in
That's
your
what I want.
career. Yeah, you come up to a practice and tell me who's going to be my starting
Well,
quarterback.
I'll go to the meetings and walk out there. Give me about 7 hours. I got this guy picked out, man. It won't be a problem. Won't be a problem. If it doesn't work out, it'll be all your fault.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Well, man, we appreciate you taking time
Yeah,
out. Be nice. You got the SEC Media Day going up. Be nice to Bob Holt. Remember that. I saw Bob the other day. I told him make sure you were acting right. And so be nice to Bob up there and everything.
Yeah.
But
hey, who was my radio guy that I took a shot at?
Well, it was Chuck, my man Chuck Barrett. Yeah, you got on Chuck.
Chuck's still mad at me about that. I mean, I thought his shot was low. I mean, if you dish it out, you got to be able to take it, right?
Well, I agree, and Chuck and me are friends. We
I know.
made some road trips, and I hadn't heard Chuck say anything bad about you in a while, and he's kind of getting over it. But I, like I said the other day, I was just driving down the road, and I went, my God, but. It's just crazy. But, hey, man, we appreciate you coming on. Appreciate taking time out of your vacation. We're going to have you on during the year. Hey, look forward to seeing the SEC Media Day.
All right, brother. Y'all be good.
All right, see you.
Thanks, Coach.
See you, buddy.